time. We'll have anyone want to entertain a motion for, or nomination, I should say, for vice chair. Any nominations to be presented for the position of vice chair? Second, here's a second for Commissioner Bolte for vice chair. Anyone have anything they want to say publicly about Commissioner Bolte? I guess we gotta ask if you accept the nomination. He's not denying it. I don't want to take that leisure with you. Does it?
Thank you for that rousing vote of confidence. Yes.
All right. Commissioner Bolte, thank you for accepting that nomination. So we have a nomination. At this point, motion. Do we need the motion again for the actual election? No.
If there's no discussion, you can call the question.
Okay, let's call the question. All those in favor of Commissioner Bolte maintaining his role as vice chair, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? None. Ayes have it. Congratulations, vice chair. All right. At that point in time, that is all that we have under our annual meeting objectives. So we're going to adjourn the annual meeting at this time. All right, at this time, we're going to call to order our regular meeting, and we will first go through our minutes. So we have a call to order here, taking a roll call. All commissioners are present, and you have the minutes that are in front of you at this point in time. Anyone have any modifications, corrections, adjustments, anything with the minutes we need to discuss? This time I'm willing to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written. Commissioner Sullivan, move that we approve the minutes in a second. Mr. Willie seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as for July 19th, 2021, please say aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Minutes are accepted. We have no old business. So at this point in time, we'll move into new business, and Executive Director McGinnis, go ahead and over to you.
Thank you, sir. We'll turn it right over to financial services.
Good afternoon. How are you all this afternoon? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Well, it's our favorite time of year, the presentation of the audit results from Clifton Larson Allen, and that will be conducted virtually by Mandy Merchant. And you should have the audit result package in front of you. I'll turn it over to Mandy now. Oh, thank you.
Mandy, can you hear me? Okay, you're good to go. Unmute.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you, Neil, for turning me on. I couldn't hear you guys, so I was trying to read your lips to figure out what's going on.
It was our annual meeting. I apologize.
Okay.
I had it muted.
Neil, can you allow me to share my screen, or is that possible?
Yes, just a moment.
Okay.
May have to change the sharing option.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, everyone should have received a couple items as part of the audit process. You would have received a copy of a presentation that starts off saying Huntsville Housing Authority 2021 audit results. Does everyone have a copy of that? Thumb up. Okay, perfect. You should then also have a copy of the audit financial statements, the draft. You also should have a schedule to close grants report, and then the government communications, a smaller letter also. So we're going to go through the presentation that I have provided you. Let me see if I can. Oh, good. Here we go. All right, here we go. I think you guys can all see my screen right now. So, all right, so I'm going to go to the next slide. So just kind of a little bit of agenda, what my plan is to present today. I'm going to go through just the engagement team, the scope, the responsibilities of the parties involved as part of this audit process, our timeline that we started and where we are going from here, our summary of the financial statement and the single audit process as part of the audit, our required government communications, and lastly, any questions that you all might have. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hand or something and just let me know, or just feel free to interrupt me. Okay, so first up, just the audit team, just a reminder for everyone that doesn't know us, Clifton Larson Allen, we are the 8th largest CPA firm in the country. Me and the team that worked on this engagement specialize on working with housing authorities. We do about 50 across the country. So this is our kind of our wheelhouse of what we do day in and day out. Myself and Justin have been working with the agency for many years. I actually started out as like a senior and kind of worked my way up to manager and senior manager and now a partner. So kind of seen you guys grow over the years. All right. So let's kind of get into the nitty gritty. So engagement skip. So what, at the end of the day, what are we trying to do here as part of the audit? Obviously, we're trying to issue some opinions, based off our procedures, developing a risk assessment, kind of looking at your internal controls, going through and tying out the numbers, looking at your balance sheet, looking at your income statement, and kind of coming to a conclusion. So with that said, we do issue for this audit 4 different reports that you're in possession of right now. The first one is issuing the opinion on the financial statements. So that is kind of when you think of any sort of an entity, the financial health. We are looking through and looking at those financial statements, and are they materially free of any misstatements? And I'm happy to report that that was an unqualified opinion, which is what you want to have. The next 2 reports are for the single audit. Since you receive over $750,000 in federal awards, we are required to perform a single audit under federal guidelines. So we issue an internal control report first, which is the government auditing standards report, and then we do a report over each of the major programs. So both of them are unmodified also, and we will look at that in a little bit more detail when we go to the back of this presentation regarding if there was any issues or findings noted. And then lastly, we do issue a schedule of closed grants, and basically HUD requires any grants that you guys have completed that they get closed out and included as part of the audit. We do issue a separate one, but we closed out a couple grants this year that we can talk about later. All right, so responsibilities of parties involved. I like to use this slide just so everyone, especially board members, or what's my role in this whole process. So just kind of breaking down governance management and independent auditors, and just kind of showing where everybody falls in it. And as you can see, really a lot of it falls on management and us. Just kind of management providing us internal controls, making sure sound internal controls are in place. Good accounting policies, management's making, appropriate decisions. And then that leads to a fair presentation of financial statements that, if everything's in place, if the culture, the internal controls, segregation of duties are all in place, then you would have a low risk of some sort of misstatement occurring and hopefully preventing and deterring any kind of fraud from happening. And then obviously just kind of the roles of ourselves. So I always like to kind of have this slide in case any board members kind of want to know where everyone fits in. Okay, so then the timeline, kind of just kind of going through this so everyone kind of knows where we started and where we're ending. So we did begin the audit back in June, working through everything. This year, everything was remote. So we've been doing the financial work and the single audit work all remotely. We are currently working through our review process. Actually, this morning I've been doing my review. It's been through Justin, who's the manager's review. It's in my review right now. In the next couple days, Justin is out on vacation, but we're going to get this into our second review process, which is the last process. So then we have a target of issuing by the end of August. After you guys make your approvals or have any questions, the goal is issue by the end of August. Anyone have any questions on the timeline? Look good? Okay. All right. So the financial statements. So in that packet that you have and looking at the audit financial statements, one of the copies you guys should have, I'm just going to give you a general overview of what's in here. Obviously, the auditor's report, which we talked about already, being an unmodified opinion. We do have the management analysis, which is in the first couple pages. On the next slide after this. The financial statements, the actual numbers, and the footnotes. Right in the beginning of the footnotes actually gives a lot of good information about the agency if you're ever curious about kind of, what's the policies and how amounts are reported, or, what kind of standards are in place. A lot of good information in here for your reading. The supplementary information, or the financial data schedules, if you all remember that you are required to submit on an annual basis to the REACT system or your financial data schedule, so that is also included in here. And then lastly, the summary of scheduled prior audit findings. So if we have any sort of audit findings that have been noted, that'll also be in here. We'll talk about a little bit. Okay. So first up, I always like to go to the balance sheet first, and this is a high level of the balance sheet. If you're in the financial statements, if you want to see this in a little bit more detail, you'll want to turn to page 13, where it kind of breaks out like what's in current, what's in restricted, what's in the non-current assets. But kind of the big highlights, as you can see, looking at increase and decrease column, things were relatively consistent from last year. So there's not any really huge swings. Nothing that kind of jumped out that was really out of the ordinary. Besides, we'll get to the income statement, all the COVID funding. But you can see that the main increase was in cash. There was a little bit of an increase in cash, about $0.7 million increase in cash. Non-current assets is basically your capital assets. So that was a decrease, and that's mainly due to the amount of additions offset. You did have a lot of disposals this year, in addition to your depreciation expense, kind of made that overall balance go down. Current liabilities maintained pretty much consistent, and then non-current liabilities went down, which is what's expected because you have the annual pay down the debt. So balance sheet remained pretty consistent. Everything was kind of within reason, kind of based on expectations that we kind of developed by talking to Teresa and staff. This all looks, what we would expect. So now we go over the income statement. We'll go to the next slide. So two things that we did here with the income statement that I like to point out. And again, if you're in the financial statements, you turn to page 15. This gives you a little bit more of a detail. It's pretty similar, but there is information in here too. Two things we did here. We wanted to kind of compare, obviously, year to year, but also compare like what is the percentage makeup of your program, your HUD money as compared to total revenue. We like to look at it and compare it to prior that way to look for any kind of inconsistencies, because we would expect this all to remain pretty consistent. And as you can tell, these numbers are very consistent in that percentage of total columns. So the biggest thing that we saw was the increase in the subsidies, obviously receiving the COVID funding for the public housing program and also for the housing choice voucher program. You did have significant amounts of that increase, about $2.2 million. And also some of that was also just normal additional HCDP money. As you have increased lease ups, you have additional money coming in door. And we saw that consistently when you look down under expenses, you see the housing assistance payments going up about, almost $2 million. That was consistent with that increase in the regular housing choice voucher program money. And now remember the way it worked with this money, you only recognize the money you actually spent. and you had very little bit of this money deferred for the CARES money. Actually, off the top of my head, I think it's about 300,000. I think is deferred right now. Oh no, you have about 100,000 deferred right now on the HCVP money that hasn't been spent yet, and you have some AR from HUD about 50,000 for the public housing CARES money. So you do have a little bit of money left over to spend on this program. Does anyone have any questions on the income statement increases? Okay. All right, and then just some highlights of the significant disclosures. Obviously, as we kind of do our procedures and we review them, they all remain neutral, they're consistent, they're clear. These are just kind of the ones that when we kind of go through are the, kind of definitely you should take a look at and read, just kind of the information that provide a lot more detail of the agency and the transactions that occurred during the year.
Can you hear us, Mandy?
Excuse me. Okay, so then the single audit report. So when you're in the audit report, if you turn back to page 46, jumped ahead, sorry. 46 has the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and this is what determines. We use this to determine what programs we're going to test this year, and at what level we're going to test them. So this year, obviously, you have about $25.3 million in federal money you received in. You will see on here too, where you can see that the CARES money that you guys received about 1.1 million in the public housing CARES money, and you received 342,000 in the HCVP money. So that's money you received and spent during the year. So that's just important to know that what was also spent, because this is the schedule of expenditures. So based on the risk assessment and roll forward of programs, we did test this year the public housing program and the capital fund program. So both of those programs require us to test a significant amount of tenant files, look at eligibility determination, looking at the wait list and how people are getting into the program, looking at tenant participation money funds, like all different kinds of things that we're looking at. And I'm happy to report we did not have any findings, so there was no findings in either of those programs this year. And in addition, from a financial statement standpoint, there was no findings in financial statements. So here's for everyone. It's very good to have, as you like to say, a clean audit for this year for the agency. Does anyone have any questions on this single audit or?
Can you hear us now, Mandy?
I can hear you.
Okay, very good. I think we did have one question.
Okay.
So the CARES Act balance she gave you, that was as of March 31st, and then at May 31st, when Desiree presented CARES Act funding, we had $20,000 left. And the references that you hear her talk about are in the financial statements, but we just submitted the summary pack to you, and it's in a draft form. So when I finalize it and review all numbers, then you will have all of the pieces of the audit. So I just wanted to bring clarification to that. So anyway, does that answer your question about the CARES Act funding? Okay. Okay, Mandy, you can continue.
Thank you. I was just rattling along talking. Sorry, guys. Okay. So lastly, the auditor communication letter that you will get once we finalize, basically just kind of an overall summary of the audit process, just kind of giving some high-level comments, observations. So basically, our responsibility under generally accepted audit standards, overall, nothing arose that required us to change the planned scope or timing of the audit. There was no issues noted that we had to, we weren't able to test something or had to, stop, our procedures. Really, we are back on schedule, even with COVID. We're the same schedule as like the prior years, issuing by 8/31, which is good. We did implement or consider implementation of 3 standards this year. We did update the debt disclosures just to have a little bit more information as required by GASB 88. We evaluated if you had any fiduciary activities, which you did not. and we looked at GASB 90 for any majority interest, which there was nothing was noted. So we did consider all those this past year. The financial statements do have estimates in them. They do have allowances for the tenants. So that is considered every year. We review that, and it's based on, management's judgment and, looking at historical, collections and, what they expect to happen in the future. As I already noted before, disclosures were neutral, consistent, and clear. No difficulties, we had no significant difficulties. We were not aware of management talking to any other auditors or having any disagreements with management. And then finally, we did just have a couple audit adjustments, but just for financial statement or for FDS presentation purposes only. So we didn't have anything that actually had an adjustment that impacted the financial statement, just moving it around within the presentation on the FDS. So. And then once you all are approved and we go through our second review process, we will be sending over a management representation letter for everyone to sign. And then at that point, we will be able to go final and issue it. So, and just so everybody knows, you are 3/31 year end. So in before COVID happened, your typical due date is 12/31, but HUD gave an additional 6-month extension. So again, we're really gearing to be done earlier than even your original due date. So right now we're basically on track to hopefully be done by the end of the month or middle of September. And that's it. Does anyone have any other questions that I or Teresa can answer? Well, I'd like to thank everyone very much. You guys have always been a wonderful client to work with. The staff does a wonderful job getting us everything very timely and upfront. So it makes, especially in a remote setting, it makes it a lot easier for us to get things done and move as quickly so we can meet these deadlines. So thank you.
Bye, Mandy.
I'm good. Okay, bye guys. Okay, bye.
Well, it's our report card, and I'm very, very happy with it. And I could not do my job without a great staff. No audit findings again, no finding in tenant files. It's one of those situations where we can just go, we're done. So anyway, I just wanted to say I'm very happy about that. You all have any comments? So no, I'll go forward. The next item on the agenda. Do you want to comment? Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, it's no small feat. I know some individuals on board right now wrestling with finances and can't get answers and can't get numbers to add up. And I was looking at them and said, I can't relate. The board that I'm on, we've got an absolutely fantastic team. And of course, FIU is great. Thank you for that. We're always asking interesting financial questions.
You are.
You don't have an answer, but you do 9 times out of 10, you get back what it's going. So it's not a surprise to get this type of audit. And you hate for it to be so expected. But again, I understand that they really compete. And the fact that we have no findings is really impressive. So appreciate that. One less thing for us to have to worry about as a board is financial findings.
I'm just so very happy. So very happy. Okay, now we'll move on to other business. My second item is act on a resolution authorizing the executive director, CEO, contracting officer to enter into a contract with 4A Services for lawn care at Brookside. So I was just going to read the resolution. If you want me to, I can read through the other document that tells you where we advertise, but we were really glad with this particular lawn care that we got 4 proposals. So as you know, we have been struggling to get vendors, but to actually have 4 to respond, that was very good. So it's resolution number 2021-30, whereas Huntsville Housing Authority requested proposals for qualified firms and individuals to provide lawn care and landscape maintenance services for Brookside. And whereas the following responsive proposals were received. The first one was at Turnips LLC 82, SPD Lawn Care LLC 60, One Step Services LLC, and 4A Services number 92. Their number was 92. Whereas 4A Services were deemed to be the most responsive bidder in accordance with the contract specification for lawn care and landscape maintenance services. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Huntsville Housing Authority hereby authorize Executive Director, CEO, Contracting Officer to enter into a contract with 4A Services for lawn care and landscape maintenance at Brookside, adopted this day, the 16th day of August, 2021.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
My question is not related to your evaluation criteria, it's just a point of inquiry.
Okay.
I'm curious about the status of the 4A services in terms of locality, local, women-owned, minority-owned, small business.
Just challenge me in this area. I cannot answer that for you at this present time. I will follow up with an email. I know that they're local. Those other two questions you asked me, I cannot answer at this time, but I will follow up with the overall email to the board. But yes, sir. I know that they're here in Huntsville, Alabama. I can answer that. So.
And again, recognizing that this is a government bid and that in itself can't be taken into account. I also recognize that we are trying to ensure that we do our part to, as Huntsville grows, to make sure that the economic opportunities are available to as many people as possible. And so at some point, I would like to ask maybe that we can take a look at our contracts that we were awarded over the past year. See if we have somebody on staff who can kind of just give us a breakdown of those types of companies, to give us an idea as to what it looks like in terms of the local, being women-owned, minority-owned, small business-owned, veteran-owned, any other criteria I think the board might have an interest in, please let us know. Here's what I have.
I would add, that would be, those are set-aside preferences. I believe the only one we have for housing for right now. My, comment in regards to this, I noticed compensation, 30%, have 30% weight. Historically, those that move around, and always have problems, this, I'm confident in the fact that we won't have this problem time, but this leads to the state. It's going to be interesting because it's minimum wage price versus all else things included. That means that the lowest price that is not newly passed, that is not been consistent with the long care that we need to have folks that do in the contract that is understand management. So I'm hoping, I guess going forward, we may need to look at changing the wages for housing.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain any motions.
Motion to
All right, so we have a motion to approve resolution 2021-30, second. Commissioner Willie seconded. Any further discussions before we call the question? All those in favor of approving resolution 2021-30, authorizing the executive director to enter into a contract with 4A Services for lawn care at Brookside, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, ayes have it. Resolution carries.
Okay, thank you. My last item is the presentation of Cumulative Low-Income Housing Finance Report for the period ending June 30th, 2021. So as you can see, the format of this report is different than what you have received in the past. This is a report that is out of our new software, Emphasis Elite. We can discuss it. If you'd like, you can send me suggestions on any changes you'd like to see. But at the present time, this is the format we have available. I will explain the variances for the items on the total line items that are 10% or greater. So as we can see, total revenue is at 15%. So the favorable variance is due to receipts of developer fees for Stone Ridge Villa in the amount of $159,223. In addition to the receipts of funds for pre-development loan for Stone Ridge Villa in the amount of $542,621. Moving forward to the next page of the financials to total tenant services, the allocation of resident services personnel to grant funded position resulted in a favorable variance for this reporting period. Also on this page, number 3, in total maintenance, the favorable decrease, well, I wouldn't call it decrease, but we're under budget, is due to a fluctuation of maintenance materials that occurs through the year. So you realize January, February, and March, our maintenance materials are usually steady or we trend under, and we get to January, February, and March of the next part of the fiscal year, those will go up. It just depends on what we're facing. We all know that prices are increasing overall in the market, but at this present time, we're performing under budget in this line item. Also moving to number 4, with total protective services being over budget, this unfavorable increase to protective services due to extending the security service contract at central office. The use of security ended on 7/29/21. This item also includes the contract HHA holds with the city of Huntsville, the police department. Moving to the last page of the financials, the favorable variance is due to, in collection loss, is due to the amount of monies we have collected that have been offset by bad debt expense. So as you still know, we're able to collect funds through MIS or that we can offset due to collection loss. So at the end of this reporting period, right now, our net increase in net assets is $845,382.31 compared to what our budget amount would be of $14,260.92. Do you have any questions about the financials for June 30th, 2021? Yes, I'm ready.
I'm assuming there are zeros for page 3 of 3.
Page 3 of 3.
For the items underneath collection loss, that's the only one we have.
Yes, sir. We don't have a budget for those line items. Extraordinary maintenance, that's something, if it happens and it meets the criteria, we will actually have expense. We don't budget for casualty loss, interest on bonds, or amortization of bond issuance costs. We have not had to transfer any money to COCC, and we don't conduct our inter-app transfer in and out until the end of the fiscal year. Oh, the Huntsville City, the police department, yes, sir. We extended our actual security contract for the guard that we had at central office. We ran that until 7/29/2021. And now we've changed our protocol. The HPD, Riley Security and the HPD are in the protective services line. That's what I'm referencing. That total amount represents 2 companies. HPD, the contract we have that is $150,000 a year, and then also Riley Security, who we paid to be at the desk at the central office. HPD we did bring to the board. That contract is yearly. The Riley Security was written off of a purchase order. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Well, Tom, executive again. Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions?
So this is the new report format.
It's the one we'd like to use. Yes, sir. It comes right out of the system. It's not as labor intensive for us.
This one we can customize the column here, this is quarter number one.
Mhm.
Here it is, at quarter number one. They say April through June.
I can look into it and see.
If it's hard, don't worry about it.
Okay?
Now I gotta calculate in my head what the third quarter is. Right?
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, if it's hard to do, don't worry about it.
Okay.
The only date on here really is at the top. This fiscal year ends 3/31/2022.
Yes, sir.
So that's the year we're in.
Yes.
That's the quarter and here it is. Position. So it's good to look at. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Before Teresa, now she's finished with that, I just want to say kudos again to the staff for no findings. And I think the audit was basically with public housing as well. So Terry, her staff, and the managers, property managers, they all did a great job of getting information to Clifton, Larson, and Allison. So we want to, and Allen. So I want to thank them for that. Oftentimes you all don't get a chance to go by and visit the finance department, but Teresa is really good with her staff, and they do an awesome job of just really working hard. Desiree filled in for us while Teresa was actually serving as our deputy, interim deputy, and I want to thank Desiree for her hard work as well. But again, if you go by the finance department, they're always busy doing stuff. I mean, just really engaged in making sure that we have an audit that looks like the one that we have. And so I want to thank them for that. But moving forward, I just want to also, Teresa has been working in dual positions until we brought on Teresa. And she's done an awesome job of just really showing some leadership throughout this agency. And I just wanted to thank her personally and publicly for the work that she was able to do. And, you know, oftentimes we don't get a chance to see leadership up close, but I definitely want to thank her for what she was able to do with our organization in that interim phase and the hard work she was able to do and continue to make sure finance was taken care of. So we definitely want to thank her. I wanted to address the RFP situation as well. Devin had asked a question about making sure that scoring that the compensation wasn't weighted heavily, and that's something that we're going to be talking with Tracy on as we move forward to make sure that compensation doesn't weigh as heavily, because we know we've gotten into some problems getting the lowest bidder on those and having that weight as much as it has in the past. If you can see this one, they must have not been the lowest bidder because their number was a little bit lower than everybody else. But I'm glad to see that the other aspects of this contract, the technical approach and the technical capabilities were actually a little bit higher than the other folks. So that means that we are hoping that that's going to address some of the concerns that we had about the lowest bid. But also, while we're right there, we're also looking at, and Teresa's working with me on this, just the feasibility of us going back to doing some lawn care in-house, especially in some of our larger neighborhoods, because we've had a new contract for Northwoods for the last 4 years. We've had a new person out there every year. And it just doesn't make sense to keep going down that rabbit hole. So we're going to try to explore what it looks like for us to do it in-house. I think that if we get a crew out there, we can do some workforce development, have some of our residents and other people who want to be on board with that. Of course, we would have to have a leader, somebody who knows lawn care to lead that up. So that's something that we're going to be looking at in the very near future. So again, thanks for that report, and finances have done a great job of just really leading us in the way that we need to go. At this time, I will have Teresa come
and present something from executive management, and after you present and we get a vote from the board, anything else that you'd like to share, please do so.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Is it, good afternoon, thank you. I'm rushing the day, right?
Yeah, hopefully we have good
So I stand to read the resolution to adopt the Huntsville Housing Authority Strategic Plan. August 16, 2021, introduction. The Huntsville Housing Authority seeks to examine its mission and align goals and objectives with that mission, focusing on its residents and services provided to residents. In an effort to do so, the Huntsville Housing Authority entered into a contract with Leadership Empowerment Enterprise to upgrade the agency's 2014-2018 strategic plan. The purpose and objective is to identify the strategic goals that address and input provided throughout a series of engagement with stakeholders. The plan will also serve as a guide and will help the agency navigate a course toward creating stronger, more consistent community alliances at large. Justification and description. The strategic plan is a way to ensure that the Housing Authority has a clear pathway to meet their goals and gain tools to lead clients to self-sufficiency. The economic impact, none. Attachments, none. Recommendation, the Executive Director, CEO, recommends that the 2021 strategic plan be adopted. Resolution to adopt the Huntsville Housing Authority Strategic Plan, which is Resolution 2021-31, whereas the Huntsville Housing Authority desires to adopt a strategic plan. And whereas the Huntsville Housing Authority desires to examine its missions and align goals and objectives that with that mission, focusing on the residents and services provided to the residents. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Huntsville Housing Authority approve the adoption of the strategic plan as presented. So at this point, we are asking that you accept the resolution as presented and read.
Well, I would like to make a recommendation, and please feel free to shoot it down. What I feel is missing from the resolution is something that addresses, kind of like an annual review of the progress of the plan. And I provided a suggestion prior to today, but it just kind of came to me. I'm just concerned about there being a place where we have this resolution, we adopted everybody in the community, stuff changing. But for us to have maximum benefit from this plan that's created, I think any future plan, I think it would be really important for us to have at least one time out of the year where we review the progress on the plan and have some level of discussion, whether that be at our annual meeting, whether we just say once a year. And I'd love to get any comments on, particularly on Mr. Anderson, who was instrumental in doing this too, about maybe any best practices that you've seen in this space, and what direction again is telling me what to. But I just want to put that out there as a potential recommendation. Maybe we don't have to put it in the resolution; we just hold to it. But I think it could actually be stronger if we do. Angela, any thoughts on that?
I concur. I concur. I think that what it does is it attaches accountability measures to the process, and it also helps you to identify specific intent so that you know that it's not just something that will be considered, but it's something that should be expected. And I think that's important. I concur with you.
In regards to the overall strategic plan, it's still, I'm speaking to the report card for the housing authority. I know I think I have a sit-down schedule with the executive director, some of the executive staff, and ways to go about providing the checks and balances. And that will actually be done. Each time that is done, many of the things in the strategic plan are covered. So we do math or fast. There's a quarterly report done quarterly basis, and a summer revision of that annually. So, I think that's a good suggestion.
I agree too. I feel like it should be in here somewhere, stated annual that we do that.
Ron, you think we could easily look at amending this resolution to maybe add some language that says, whereas the board desires, or the Housing Authority desires to review the progress of the plan annually?
I believe you could make that your motion and give the executive director the authority to make those clerical changes to the plan. And do it all here if you want to, rather than, you could change the plan for the resolution and bring it back up, but I also think you could pass it subject to that modification and give him the authority to make that modification.
Mr. Bolton, Commissioner Thompson, any issue with what's being recommended? All right, any other comments or thoughts about the strategic plan in general?
When will we see the final copy?
I'm not sure, so I defer to Tony for that.
Last month we saw one that gave additional feedback on it. I haven't seen the final copy. Yeah, we'll make sure to get the final copy. We've been working on the edits that we were needing to do, and so we've actually we found out that we had to get new software, because the last time we did that, we actually thought the edits had been done before we sent them to the board, and they were not done. So a lot of the things that came up were actually things that I didn't personally check. So now we're making sure that we have the software, and we're working directly with the person to make sure those edits get done. But the content will not change. The edits will be done, and we'll send that out to the board as well. We'll get that as soon as we make sure all of the edits are done. Yeah, I think it was mainly typo content. But you don't have a set target date for when we're in?
I'll have it by the next board meeting. We'll make sure that it goes out before the next board meeting.
I do want to thank Mr. Anderson as well too for the lead on this. And I know this is the process that always is for a strategic plan, but I personally am really excited about the outcome. I think it provides us the opportunity to come back and review that as our compass moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate that very much. All right, so I will entertain any motions about the resolution 2021-31, adopting the Huntsville Housing Authority strategic plan. Okay.
Second. So moved with the modification.
Okay.
So moved with the modification we discussed with the authority to make that change.
All right, so adoption of the plan with the authority for the executive director to make the modification to the resolution, inserting language saying that we will review the strategic plan annually.
And quarterly reports that Mr. Sullivan had asked for, right?
And quarterly reports. Okay, quarterly reports annually. All right, any second to that?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Sullivan, and no further discussion. Call the question. All those in favor of accepting the motion, the resolution as stated, please say aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution passes. Thank you.
So if I could take I hope I'm not out of order, take a few seconds while I'm standing. One, the first thing I want to just, commend Tony on his participative and open leadership. That means a lot coming into a new organization. And I want to shout out, just have the same sentiments that everybody else has had about the staff. The HHA staff is immaculate. You know, I have gotten the opportunity to talk and work with each, specifically the executive staff, intimately. And they all are really excellent as it relates to teaching me and teaching and knowing their job. So I want to just say hats off to Terry and Paula and Miss Paula, and of course, and you, Teresa and her financial team. But however, I really want to take a shout out to Jacqueline and Terica. They are the best supportive services that I've ever witnessed. So I just wanted the board to understand that you have a great staff on deck. They are experts in what they do, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. But specifically, those supportive services, they mean a lot within an internal office. So I just wanted to shout out Terica and Jacqueline for that. That supportive services piece means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. It was a joy having Teresa at the board, I mean, not the board meeting, but the city meeting with the mayor last week. Of course, being that she was with community development for so long, she knows exactly what questions to ask, what money is available to ask for, and, you know, I definitely appreciated having her there, and Teresa has been, I mean, on the ground running since he started, so we're just grateful to have her on the team. Real quickly, I want to address the police issue. Well, not necessarily issue, it's an issue, well, it's still an issue. But I talked to the new deputy chief of police, and he really broke down, this was the new Charles Brooks, Charles Brooks. And he talked to me in depth about the amount of police protection that is on the street at one particular point in time during the day. They got a first shift, second shift, third shift. And he just kind of referenced that on any particular shift, North Huntsville probably will have 17 to 18 officers on the street. And that's to police the entire north, area. And so he said, and for us to pay for those services that we're paying for, it really gives us an opportunity to make sure that when there's a call, there's somebody to respond because of the lack of support that they have on the ground at one particular point in time. And it kind of eased me a little bit to know that, because there are shifts where we only have a certain amount of officers that police the whole area, knowing that we could have officers respond pretty quickly, it provides some level of comfort. I'm sure the residents would appreciate that as well, because in the past, I've had a problem with saying, why we're paying for these services, but that there's a limited amount of officers on the ground every single day, and to know that we have an opportunity to have those officers respond pretty quickly gave me a level of comfort. But I've also challenged him to address some of the issues of community policing. We don't want officers in our community just responding to crime. We want them, if we're paying for that service, we want them there to develop relationships with our residents, with our young people, especially those young people who are officers now, who come from the neighborhood, have more engagement, try to get more involved in reaching out and seeing, developing those relationships with those young people who are right here in our community who may want to become officers at some point in time in their life. And he addressed that he would definitely take that back to the chief and make sure that not only we have those guys, but we also took it a step further and tried to make sure that we identify people who look like the people that they're serving, police our neighborhoods, and kind of have some kind of identity with the community that they're serving. And so those things are going to be addressed. Officer Trussell has been good in responding to what we would like him to respond to, and now to have the addition of Deputy Chief Brooks is another kind of feather in the hat to develop those relationships with the community. The next annual meeting, I would like to make a recommendation that we kind of have a state of the agency address at the next meeting we have. And we invite our resident advisory board, our AHAC, pending COVID allows us to do this next year around this time. I really would like for us to have a place where we identify what's going on in the agency, let all our stakeholders and partners be a part of this process so that, we can provide some feedback for the community as it relates to what's going on. I know the city has the state of the city address, the state of the schools, and if we have something similar about what's taking place in the housing authority and hopefully allowing that to grow would be great. We are working on Office of Constituent Concerns. This is going to be an in-house office that will allow residents the opportunity to voice their concerns and make sure that they have a response within 48 hours. I think it's important to allow residents an opportunity to know that their concerns are being addressed in an expeditious manner. And so we're in the process of putting this together right now. It's going to be ran through our resident services department, and our deputy director is going to help us in leading that up. But, I think it would really eliminate as much as possible the opportunity for residents to feel like they just need to call the news station, the mayor, or whoever, because they're not getting the response. And oftentimes, what I've discovered is it is just a response. And when we can respond directly to a situation, it puts our residents at ease. And with having 1,300 homes or units right here in public housing, that's a lot of people to respond to. But if we have a place where they can voice those concerns and we can identify those concerns in a timely fashion, it's going to help us as we build those relationships with our residents. I did want to mention, I know the last time we spoke of the maintenance shop, that the city had kind of pulled away from wanting to purchase that. I think they're in a position where we're going to have to decide on what we want to do moving forward, because they've expressed some interest again in acquiring the maintenance shop from us. And I think that's all going to be contingent on what we do with our lawn care and our actual workforce development program that we're trying to put in place. Our occupancy numbers are starting to trend in the right direction. Terry and Mike have done an awesome job of just really working with the property managers and the maintenance team to make sure that we don't have a lot of vacant units. And they've done a great job of getting contractors in place and getting the maintenance staff on board to making sure that we don't have any empty units around here. And we're excited. I think we're going to be over 95% by the end of the month, but our goal is to get back up to 100% occupancy. And, kind of if we waver around 98%, that's good for us when it comes to our POS scores. And so we're excited about that. Our Section 8 program, I think we're about to partner with an individual who has some units available, and we'll be able to get some of our Section 8 participants off the street. Paula and I have been working with a company who's renovated a lot of apartments in some areas, and we actually had an opportunity to go out there Thursday and look at the units. They've really turned those units around, and hopefully that'll give us an opportunity to have a place for over 350 people who are on the street looking right now. They had multiple units that they're renovating, so I wanted to make sure that we address that. Paula has done an awesome job working with the state to make sure that they understand, and the field office pretty much understands our dilemma. With Huntsville being one of the top 3 places to live in the country, the housing stock is not as great for our residents in particular. And so with us finding new partners and reaching out to new developers, we're trying to do all we can to make sure that our residents, our main concern, have a place to live. And so I just want to say kudos to the staff again, everybody that's on this staff, and make sure that we do all that we can to address the need that is out there. And then we're going to have a landlord fair on August 25th.
And once again, all we're trying to do is make sure that our landlords who are here in Huntsville understand the importance of partnering with the housing authority because we're in need, they're in need, and it can be a great partnership if we continue to let them know what we have going on. I think that's it for me. Any questions?
No questions, so thank you, Mr. McGinnis, appreciate that, the update from the CEO. And we will now, well, there's no public comments to be had, so we'll open the floor for any comments or thoughts from individuals making Mr. Powell.
I was gonna ask about, the questions about the landlord favors, but heard the radio advertising the last couple of weeks for, different landlords that would accept vouchers and for contractors. And I was just curious, you did a good job, by the way, Bill.
Thank you.
There's been, any uptick in calls from that and kind of how long that'll run? Is that part of a plan where we'll do other marketing, that kind of thing?
I'm not sure exactly how long it runs. Neil, can you-
2 months. We're running for August and September.
96.9.
Yeah, right now it's just 96.9, but we worked in conjunction with them to produce those advertisements, and we own them. We can actually play those on other stations at a later time if we wish. So we don't have any, production royalties or anything like that. We did 2 for now. Well, really 3. We did one for contractors, as you mentioned, one for landlords in the area, and then we did a third one that's going to start running more for the landlord fair, just advertising that. And I believe we had also discussed one for just general, employment at the Huntsville Housing Authority, and trying to advertise some of the benefits that people have, through our benefits. And just to try to reach out for, our own employment benefits. Yeah, it's a very strong station in the area, probably one of the biggest. Yeah, it's mixed 96.9. It used to be known as light 96.9. But yeah, and like I said, we could always re-air those commercials somewhere else if we needed to. Sure.
Good meeting today. Since the last board meeting, I represented the housing authority for some kind of a Boy Scout award ceremony, Troop 400. I tell you, they got it going on. I was really impressed. And they gave the housing authority a lot of kudos. I don't know who particularly works with the Boy Scouts from the housing authority. Yeah, you know. Yeah, they was really complimentary of engagement from our side. So I want to tell you that. Good job on the audit. Thanks for all your efforts and the staff in general. I know you guys work hard. So thank you very much for that. Are you going to talk about Zoom meetings or what are you saying? Talk.
Mr. Wood?
This next week, there's HHA and Constituent. And then they're partnering with, I'm loving it. And I can't wait to hear the advertising on 96.9. I'm all for your advertising, so that real people in. So that's it.
Excuse my own professionalism, I say this. Y'all doing a hell of a job. Recently, you taking all the excitement out of last week. And obviously, I guess I consider myself boots on the ground, so I hear and see what the housing authority is doing all the time. figure that when I do send an email to folks like the director and Mike, it's only for information purposes only. You can take that information and do it, but it's never to mean or degrade what people, for the housing. I know the work that you do. Matter of fact, Mike said, all the emails says FYI, anything that comes from you. Because I reason I have to say this because I'll get a lot of the complaints that's on one side forward to the household, but I also know that there's two sides to every story. So, don't let the folks that are working with you or for you think that Commissioner Sullivan is information purposes only, and then to give the resident a feel good moment in that case when he or she feels so they have no other hope. Lastly, I've never heard of 96.9. I heard it's 98.1, 103.1. So I will make some recommendations of some other radio stations because I know some of the folks have asked me about this particular. This is a more predominantly African American thing. So we spread the wealth a little more. Make it a little more. Sorry.
All right, ditto what the other commissioners have said. You are leading very, very effectively the housing authority of the largest city in the state of Alabama. So that's a little different than it was last time we met, but I think you're doing a great job too. So hats off to you, Director McGinnis, and your staff and your team here. In terms of future meetings, we've all kind of see what's going on with the Delta variant, and we made a decision as a housing authority to want to move from the Zoom meetings to being in face-to-face, face-to-face in person. I think we need to keep an eye on what's transpiring with the Delta variant, and as a board, we either need to make a decision to either say, if things progress the way they are in a negative way, either maybe we do ensure we wear face masks here while we're present for the meetings, so we set a good example for others, or we make a decision to move to more virtual Zoom meetings until the situation changes. But I'd love to hear from other commissioners and your thoughts on that.
I'm on the board of the board and they all
I agree, it should be some kind of level, like we should have a level one, okay, like the schools, level 0, where they have no mask, level 1, where we have no mask, and level 2, in other zone. I think it should be a process. But we should have different levels, depending on the member and the interest of the public.
I know the situation is fluid, so if you're okay with it, based on where we are today, we can make a decision for our next board meeting to make that virtual. So, if there's any objections to the commissioners, we'll.
Yeah, that's no problem. That's no problem. I'm getting used to, running on the fly, so we're good.
And then we'll make a determination at some point based on how the numbers look about coming back face to face. I know face to face is a richer discussion. Maybe I'm old school. I like to be there face to face, but we also want to take all precautions from a safety standpoint. So please make it be known on the calendars to make sure we get a Zoom invite out. And for our next meeting, will be virtual. If there's no other discussions, we will call this meeting adjourned.